An iceberg is a massive floating mass of freshwater ice that is broken off from a glacier or ice shelf and floats in an open ocean. But that's not really the iceberg that I am interested in about today. An iceberg is also a representation or a metaphor for the relative knowledge of a specific subject. The higher up on an iceberg, the more known it is, but the deeper you go down and the less visible, the more unlikely that information actually is. And it's a way to represent bizarre trivia or theories on that related subject. And I have actually discussed an iceberg theory before. I have done an iceberg video back in 2024, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and if you haven't seen it, I would 100% recommend you do check it out. But as the years have gone by and more things are known or unknown, I thought it was time for a much needed update. Reapproach the iceberg concept with new and some old concepts and present it to you guys as a way of displaying some Ninjago knowledge. So that is going to be what we do today. I have constructed a whole new iceberg on my own, like I said, using some older aspects and some newer aspects, and I'm going to present it to you today. And I'd like to know, how much of this do you know and how much of it do you not know? I've tried to be somewhat more abstract and obscure, but obviously that is purely subject to your own interpretation. What may be on the bottom layer to you may not be to some others. So all I ask is that we keep it civil. But let me not waste any more of your time, and let's look at the ultimate Ninjago iceberg of 2026. The Weekend Whip. The Weekend Whip is one of the main themes and one of the main pieces of music that is associated with the Ninjago franchise. Originally produced by the band The Fold, but has later also been adopted by other singers, this is a song that is the representation of Ninjago in a lot of ways, being used in most of the intros, having different variants based on the theme of that respective season. A lot of people love these, and they are still being produced 15 years on. Personally speaking, the most recent add-on, being the 15th anniversary whip, is my personal favourite. I would love to know what yours is. FSM, also known as the first Spinjitzu Master. The first Spinjitzu Master was a powerful being who was the creator of the art of Spinjitzu, as well as the island of Ninjago and a handful of the realms of creation such as Imperium, currently residing within the grasslands. Enjoying peace on his own or with Quanish the Elder, he is one of the most powerful beings that we've ever seen over the course of the show, having interactions with the like of the Source Dragons themselves. He is the original Elemental Master and the reason why basically anything that we've seen in Ninjago has happened today. There is no Ninjago without the first Spinjitzu Master. There is just simply nothing without him, and honestly, he deserves a lot more respect than he truly does get. The LEGO Ninjago movie. The Ninjago movie was released in 2017, being the third out of a fourth run of LEGO related movies. This one was unfortunately the least performing and the least critically received of the lot, but did a lot for the Ninjago franchise as a whole, introducing a whole new wave of fans and giving a whole lot more in terms of the visibility of the franchise itself. It didn't come with its full benefits, however, as there were some consequences in people's eyes, such as redesigning all of the ninjas' looks, also influencing the story in different ways, because Ninjago was planned on being played out differently if the movie had not existed. But as an overall scale, the Ninjago movie was a massive net positive when it does come to Ninjago as a franchise, and if you haven't checked out that movie, I would highly recommend you do so, because if you're a Ninjago fan, I do think you would get plenty of enjoyment out of it. The Green Ninja. The Green Ninja is the title that is given to the Elemental Master of Life. Each Green Ninja that has existed over the course of the show's history has been tasked with protecting the Whispering Woods, ensuring its health through the ritual of unrooting. Currently speaking, Lloyd Garmadon does hold this title, as foretold by the prophecy that indicated that one Green Ninja would rise above all others and become the chosen one, destined to defeat the Overlord in a decisive battle for the fate of Ninjago. There have been multiple over the course of time, and we aren't aware of who are the previous ones, but we just know that Lloyd has definitely been one of the more interesting cases of the lot. Leaks. Leaks are some of the most infamous things that have ever happened in the Ninjago community. Basically anything and everything about Ninjago has been leaked in some form of capacity, whether that is episodes, episode descriptions, sets, minifigures, the whole likes. It just seems to be that LEGO can't keep a control on their output of information. I genuinely do not remember the last time we discovered something at the time that LEGO actually wanted us to discover it. But regardless of that, they are something that a lot of people do like to have because people just simply like having that information as soon as they can. Personally speaking, it would be nice if leaks could end, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Animation studios. Ninjago has gone through 2 different animation studios over the course of its life cycle. Originally beginning with Will Film, they were in charge of producing the first 10 seasons of the show. During that time we got to see their animation get better, and we even saw them change vendors at one point. Their animation is very distinct and it's very iconic for Ninjago. After that point in time, it was handed off to WildBrain. WildBrain had a very similar art style, but actually took it in a very different light. Things became more stretchy, things became more loose, things became just more fluid in general, and WildBrain are considered some of the best animators that we've actually seen with Ninjago, especially during the time of Dragon's Rising, where the animation is getting universal praise. It definitely does seem to be Ninjago is in very capable hands, but both studios have been absolutely fantastic, and I think they have both done a fantastic job when it does come to Ninjago. Episode 19 and 20. This is a reference to one of the most infamous leaks that we have ever actually seen. Dragon's Rising Season 3 Part 1 had released in April of 2025. However, about a week later, near enough the entirety of Season 3 Part 2 was also completely leaked, apart from the final 2 episodes. This came literally 6 months before we were actually meant to see the episodes, but we got to see episodes 11 through to 18, and for months, people were wondering if episode 19 or 20 would actually become leaked as well. They eventually did, but only a week before the show actually aired them officially. But for months on end, one of the main talking points in the Ninjago community was the current state of 19 and 20, taking on a whole new life of its own. Ninjago memes. This is a reference to just simply internet culture. Ninjago has taken on the life of many of its own respective memes that have even broke out of the Ninjago space. This includes the like of Kai saying, "Am I the Green Ninja?" or Cole saying, "Wait a minute, I'm still black." There are many quotes and many instances of screenshots being taken from Ninjago and being used and taken its own life. Some of them are very popular, some aren't as much. But regardless of how you spin it, this show has definitely taken on its own presence within internet culture, which I do think is very cool to see, and it does make me wonder what will be used next. Doc Wyatt. Doc Wyatt is the current head writer of Ninjago, taking on a lot of the creative decisions and is seemingly very responsible for the story of Dragon's Rising. He has been around though for much longer, but he has never been in this position until this event. We have actually gotten to see though how interactive and how into the community he truly is, answering many questions on social media platforms and trying to relay answers as well as possible. He's also just a very stand-up dude, very kind by any sort of user experience with him, and it definitely does seem to be that Ninjago is in very capable hands when it does come to Doc. Honestly, I'm just glad that our writers are into the community and not disconnected like other franchises do have. Shadow of Ronin. Shadow of Ronin is one of the most popular pieces of external media when it does come to Ninjago. It is a game that was released in 2015 and it has a loose canonicity based on events between the events of Season 4 and Season 5. This game is extremely popular and to this very day has a cult following. For good reason, it's a fantastic game and I don't think it honestly has any major flaws. It is an extremely fun experience that you can still play to this day on the App Store on iOS. iOS. I'm not familiar with any other main methods, but I do know it was on other platforms during periods of time. If you can get a hold of this game, I would highly recommend you check it out. It's a fun experience, definitely a very solid lineup in terms of the LEGO game catalog, and just an overall enjoyable experience, especially if you are an Ninjago fan. There's a lot of deep cuts, there's a lot of references, there's just a lot of knowledge in there that definitely would keep you entertained. Clutch Powers. Clutch Powers originally debuted in his own LEGO movie in 2009, being The Adventures of Clutch Powers. He was his own entity and a very popular character that people wanted back to this very day. He was referenced in Ninjago in 2012 in Season 1. Cole says Clutch Powers' name verbatim, but it wasn't until Season 11 where they made him a full established character within Ninjago. They made him his own unique identity, actually having different personality traits when it does come to that original movie version of Clutch. It is unknown whether they are directly connected. I personally do think they can be to an extent, and I have made a video about it before. But regardless, an iconic character within LEGO media has made an appearance within Ninjago, and it's definitely been a cool one, even though we haven't seen him in a very long time. 17 Realms. This is alluding to the idea that there aren't just 16 realms that Ninjago itself in show has alluded to. It seems to be that there are actually 17, as 16 existed before the first Binjitsu master created Ninjago as it was. Although, and I've had to re-record this because of this, it seems to be that recently it has been established that there may actually be even more than 17 realms, but that is not yet confirmed. But regardless of that, there is definitely at least 17 within the Ninjago mythos, contrary to what the show has led us to actually believe. Fortnite. This is in reference to the fact that Ninjago has had a Fortnite collaboration as of December 2025. The LEGO Fortnite mode saw a big injection of Ninjago related ideas and gameplay elements, taking on a whole new story that is extremely fun. You get to make elemental weapons, you get to play as the ninja as they all have their own Fortnite skins, both in LEGO form and also in the humanoid form. It is a very fun collaboration that I still actively play to this very day. I would recommend you do so as well because it is a very enjoyable experience. But unfortunately, as of current, we know that there was a scheduled part 2 to this collab which seemingly was cancelled. Hageman Brothers. The Hageman brothers are one of the original writers when it does come to Ninjago, unfortunately no longer being involved in the project, leaving around the time of the Oni trilogy. But what we do know is that they are currently in charge of actually writing the live action Ninjago movie, which as of the time of filming we have no further information on. But beyond that, and besides writing the show itself, we also know that they have got cameos within the show itself. They appear as LEGO minifigure forms and just get up to random activities. One of the most notable ones being in the cinema where the ninja were during the Love Triangle arc. They just kind of exist, and it's really cool that they actually injected themselves there, but we haven't seen them in a very long time. The Love Triangle. The Love Triangle is the most infamous and hated Ninjago arc, beginning in Rebooted where we see Nia fight over whether or not she has feelings for Cole or Jay, and seeing those two ninja actually fall out in accordance with it. This is near enough universally hated. No one seems to like this arc whatsoever, and some of the most popular Ninjago videos cover how bad it truly is. It lasted through until Season 6, where we got to see the fallout and the reconciliation of Cole and Jay, Nia and Jay, and also Nia and Cole by the looks of it. There's a reason why people don't like this one, and I fully agree with the reasoning why. The further away we get from it, the better. The Miracle Whip. The Miracle Whip is one of the few instances that we are aware of a Weekend Whip variant that was actually cut. This was meant to be the Season 11 rift for the intro. It was then replaced by the Wicked Whip, one that a lot of people do like. But luckily we do have access to what the Miracle Whip actually was in its full entirety. It is on YouTube and I would highly recommend you check it out. It has a very different feel to it and I honestly kind of like it. In the end though, I do think the Wicked Whip is a better fitter for the Fire and Ice chapter, but that's just me. I would recommend you check it out though. The Serpentine Train. This is in reference to one of the most infamous cases of a cut Ninjago set. In 2012, we were shown a serpentine train. It was in its complete entirety at an expo, but it never actually saw the light of day. As far as we are aware, there's not a particular reason as to why it isn't around, we just know it was at some point cut. Most likely just for budgetary reasons. But a lot of people do wish that we actually got that train, and people hope that one day it will get remade in Legacy. Personally speaking, I could take it or leave it. It's not really accurate by any account. I'm assuming it's meant to be some sort of resemblance of the bus that we saw at the end of Season 1, but that's kind of beside the point. Reality is, it's just one of the more infamous cases of a cut set. Master Wu and the Star Wars connection. This stems from one of the earliest episodes of Ninjago, where Wu is meditating with his smoke, and at the end he opens his eyes and he says, "I sense a great disturbance in the Force." This is a very clear-cut reference to Star Wars, a rather infamous franchise, so I am not surprised in any sort of way. But what is interesting is the implication, because it means one of two things. Either Star Wars is canon to Ninjago, or the Force exists within Ninjago. Honestly, either or could be the case. Honestly, I kind of like the idea that Wu is secretly a Force user, but regardless, it's a silly little reference that not a lot of people remember, and we never saw again. Day of the Departed alternative cut. This is in reference to the fact that Day of the Departed does have an alternative version that is similar in vein in terms of story and has the same outcome, but was actually animated differently, has different lines, has different attachments to it. It is honestly very interesting. It is called Attack of the Cursed Spectre. Now this revealed mostly in Eastern countries. There is no specific instance of where it actually does originate from, but all we know is that it doesn't exist actually translated to English, but there are subtitle variants of this cut that do exist on YouTube. If you want an alternative version of the special, you could always check it out because it's actually not that bad. The Legacy Bounty. This is actually in reference to two things. For one, the Legacy Bounty set actually went through some alterations that we are actually aware of. Now, the set itself released within the Legacy wave, and is debatably one of the best bounties we've ever gotten, but there are some early access leaked images of this bounty that show that there was meant to be something else within this set. If you notice, there are no villains actually in the set, and in the early versions, we would have gotten a Legacy Garmadon, but the difference is that it would have had Kai's movie hair, but in black, and also the Mega Weapon. It's a shame it never actually came to be. The second one I want to talk about is that the Legacy Bounty is actually being seen for a lot longer than you may have actually realized. Now, it was the ninja's main bounty for Season 13 through until the start of Dragon's Rising. But what is more interesting is that in Season 3, we get to see the Temple Bounty. But in the show itself, the Temple Bounty's underside is just the Legacy Bounty. It is just literally a new bounty placed on top of the base of the old one. It is just by all accounts asset reuse, but I do find it fairly interesting. Wind. The line of wind is in reference to the episode Season 1, Episode 10, The Green Ninja. When the ninja are fighting within the Fire Temple, Jay actually exclaims the phrase wind, as he fires an elemental power that looks like a tornado and he goes through it. Now this has been the source of a lot of controversy, even though it has been confirmed by the writers that it's just a simple mistake. Regardless of how you look at it, in universe, Jay does proclaim wind, and it's caused a lot of theories and a lot of speculation as to what that truly means. I personally have my own ideas about it, and you can see that on my channel. But as it stands, and a very quick summary, all in all, I think it's just something to do with elemental lightning, but that's just me. Coal Statue. This is in reference to the fact that Season 13, Master of the Mountain, actually had a cut scene in the finale. There was meant to be a scene where we see the Geckos and the monks actually make a statue of Cole beside the statue of Lily. It was meant to be as a way to honor the fact that he freed them in similar vein to how she did years before, but it was ultimately cut because there wasn't enough time to actually keep it in. We also know that during this scene, there would have been some sort of acknowledgement from the Lily statue towards the Cole statue, indicating that she is proud of him. I wish this actually got to remain. Ninjago language. This is in reference to the fully translatable language of Ninjago. This was introduced around 2017 with the Ninjago movie, and has been a main staple ever since. There is a full dictionary alphabet that is completely translatable, and it is applied to anything and everything Ninjago. There are people who are fluent in Ninjago, which is honestly really cool to see, and I wish I was as well, because from what I've seen and from what I know of people who do understand it, it's apparently a very fun language to actually understand. The ninjas' ages are unknown. This is in reference to the years-long debate as to whether or not the ninjas' ages are actually determinable or not. We have had a few hints as to where their age could be over the years, but nothing ever concrete. Many people have given their own interpretations to this, me included, but we've never had an official answer. And that is mostly just down to the fact that the writers don't write the ninja with an age in mind. They're just simply the vessels for the story and their own individual characters. So it's not like it actually matters, but still it is something that people do wonder, but we'll probably never know. Wooden Woo. Wooden Woo is Ninjago's most expensive quote-unquote minifigure. There are 5 hand-carved Woo minifigures that exist out there as a prop from the Ninjago movie. Now, where they all are is not explicitly known, but we do know the location of some of them. For example, we know that some of the workers on the Ninjago movie do own 1 or potentially 2. Another one is owned by one of the most notorious collectors in all of LEGO, and we know that there is one in the Lego house in Denmark. So it's a bit up and down in terms of where everything is and what it does belong to, but all we know is that they do exist, and if they were to be sold today, they would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ash and the Overlord's connection. This was popularized around the time that Tournament of Elements was coming out. When we saw all of these brand new designs for all of these new elemental masters, people noticed that the character of Ash, the Master of Smoke, actually had a symbol on his outfit that was identical to what we actually saw in the Overlord the season prior. This led to loads of speculation. People assumed that there was going to be some form of connection. The Overlord was going to return, and there was going to be a new Overlord arc at the time. In reality, it was a simple case of asset reuse. Season 4 has a lot of brand new characters, and if you look at all of them, they have some sort of similarity to what we've seen before, but this one was pointed out because of how apparent it actually was. But in the end, it was confirmed that there was no inherent meaning behind it. Kai is in Minecraft. This is in reference to the fact that the LEGO Minecraft sets have actually received a Kai minifigure within the past. A set actually containing a complete Minecraft version of the Season 8 Kai does exist and is a minifigure you can actively purchase. This is a really cool thing to see, and I do wish we actually got it for the rest of the Ninja. We have no idea about what actually went into this very small collaboration, but regardless of it, it is something that is very cool. So if you're a fan of both Minecraft and also Ninjago, it is definitely one that you should pick up, because the minifigure is also pretty cheap. Rapton is Crux. This is from one of the very first theories that ever emerged when it did come to Dragon's Rising. We saw some initial leaked images that showed some really blurry images of a character that resembled Crux. This mostly just came down to the fact that the individual was older and had the same hairpiece that Crux was using before, so a lot of people began to speculate that this was going to be him in disguise, and Dragon's Rising was going to have a focus on the Time Twins. In the end, it was revealed to be the character of Rapton, and this theory has gone forgotten ever since, but it was certainly an interesting time to be around, and it was honestly one that a lot of people believed. But obviously, like I said, in the end, it wasn't true. Digi Zane. With the release of Season 12 or Prime Empire, all of the ninja got these new digi-suits, and what's interesting is that Zane didn't actually get one. People didn't understand what this meant, because at the time all we knew was the set. It was later shown that Zane didn't take part in Prime Empire, and that is why he didn't get that minifigure. But a lot of people to this very day want one of Digi Zane. But what is interesting is that the design actually does exist. From the magazines, we do actually have renders on what DigiZane truly does look like. A lot of people didn't realize that these do exist, so it's good to point these out now. Maybe one day we'll get our hands on it, but honestly, I don't know when it does come to Ninjago. The original Purple Ninja. This stems back to the end of Season 2, when people thought the show was done and over with. With Garmadon being good once more, it seems to be that people were speculating on what could have happened post Season 2. But one of the most infamous videos that is something that only really people from that era remember now is an old video of someone showing what could be the Purple Ninja. And it's not Lil Nelson like a lot of people associate now. It was actually a Garmadon render where he was in a purple version of the kimono outfit, and it was meant to be the reveal of the new 6th ninja. So it would have been an interesting one that not a lot of people remember, but definitely find that video if you haven't seen it. Harumi's reveal was actually spoiled. The plot twist of Harumi actually being the main villain of Season 8 was something that came to be a surprise to a lot of people. But what a lot of people don't remember is that back then, there was actually a lot of reason to believe that she was going to be the villain based on LEGO's own videos. Around the time or before the release of Season 8, we received a handful of videos that were product animations for the Season 8 sets. And in the set that Harumi came in, she was depicted as fighting the ninja. Now, this led a lot of people to believe that she was actually going to be evil, and of course, it ended up being correct. Another thing that just not a lot of people remember, and I personally, for one, remember seeing that at the time and assuming that Harumi was the villain. So it is a massive shame, and it's certainly one of the reasons why I reckon we don't get as many of those videos nowadays. But that's just me. Zane removed from the fridge. This is coming from one of the first ever episodes of Ninjago, in a montage to demonstrate how weird Zane was, because at this point in time it wasn't revealed that he was actually a ninjroid. What we actually got to see was the ninja going through moments where they saw Zane in certain situations. Now in the original cut, or the cut that was shown in the US, there is a scene where Kai opens the fridge and Zane is sat in there eating a sandwich, and he tries to pass Kai the cheese. Now this version, however, was only in that region, as in international versions of the episode, we actually got to see that Zane was removed in favor of just a poster to portray the same dialogue that Zane actually said. This is most likely just down to the fact that LEGO didn't want to promote the idea of actually having children go into their own fridges, but we never received official words, and we've never heard about it since, nor have we seen anything like it since. A bit of a weird one. Cole is colorblind. This is in reference to the fact that Cole might actually be quite literally colorblind. The thing is that we know a lot of general trivia about all of the ninja, but in Season 13, or Master of the Mountain, we get to see Cole describe the skull of Hazardua as being red. He was completely certain of it, and they make a point of bringing up the fact that he was sure. It was then revealed that it was actually green. So this has led on to the theory that Cole is actually colorblind, and we don't actually know whether or not he truly comprehends the colors of red and also green, which makes it really funny in retrospect when it does come to being the Green Ninja, but that's just beside the point. We've never really had much further confirmation on the matter, and it seems to be an offhanded comment, but as we can tell, Cole might actually be colorblind. Fuji Buff. Fuji Buff is a now infamous piece of fan art from the 11-minute era, serving as a way just to promote the idea of Fuji Buff, and it was something that caught the writer's attention, and in reaction to it, they decided to actually put it in the show, albeit very briefly and in the background. But once you see it's there, you cannot unsee it. This is one of the very few instances where something like this actually makes its way into the show, and I don't think we've ever actually seen it happen since. So, from what we know, it seems to be that Fuji Buff is canon and very real. Wait, what's that behind you? Cole is doomed. This is actually in reference to the reflections that we get to see in Possession. All of the ninjas see in their future selves, but not actually Cole. Now at the time, it was explained away that Cole could actually disappear within his ghost form, but that has actually since been retconned. It has actually been confirmed that those reflections are still 100% canon and still fully the case, which means Jay still gets an eye patch, which means we get to see all of the ninja actually make their way to that old age, and Cole is still nowhere to be seen. So by all implication and by all evidence that we have, Cole won't make it to that old age like the rest of the ninja. Nardacon's original name. This is in reference to the fact that Nardacan was never always named Nardacan. He actually had a different name which was actually Azad. But the thing is that this is actually sharing the same name of a real life dictator. And because of this, Nardacan's name was eventually changed to what we now know. But what is even more interesting is that Amazon Prime actually forgot to change the original episode descriptions that they were sent before the change. And for a very long time, Nardacan was referred to by this name on Amazon. This led to a lot of confusion and a lot of people wondering why it was actually the case. But in retrospect, I do find it crazy to think that there was that real world connotation and also link. I honestly am wondering how many times that happens that we aren't actually aware of. The Postman Knows. The Postman Knows is a reference to the fact that the Postman might actually be a character that understands that he is within a TV show. We have actually seen an instance where the Postman directly alludes to the fact that they are in a seasonal basis. Now this is eventually played off, but the reality is that is what he says, and when questioned about it he gets nervous and he runs off. It has led to this idea that the Postman actually knows more than we initially realized. He is more aware and honestly might have more power than we realized. Maybe he's the first Spinjitzu master. But regardless, it seems to be that there's a lot more to the Postman than we truly do realize. Maybe he does know. Why is he staring at us? Aliens. We have never definitively seen aliens within Ninjago. We have seen some bug-like creatures in Rebooted, but that was about it. But did you know that there was actually a scrapped season that was going to be Season 4 instead of Tournament of Elements? We were going to see a season that actually took place with the ninja in space. They were going to fight off alien monsters, and that is basically for the most part what we know. It was meant to be a follow-up to the fact that the ninja went into space in Rebooted, but it was eventually replaced by what we actually got in the end, which is definitely a good thing. But the Ninjago comics actually leaned in on this idea, and we have actually seen multiple comics that allude to this concept of aliens, such as shapeshifters. It is certainly an interesting one to read, and I highly recommend you do so. Maybe they live among them. Spin-off show. During the Ninjago development cycle, there was actually an idea thrown about for a Ninjago spin-off series. This would have been Ronin and a handful of the female characters from Ninjago actually teaming up and facing off against villains. There was going to be an interesting spin to this, but it was never realized within the end, most likely due to budget constraints and wanting to focus on the main show itself. Honestly, I'm happy this didn't happen in retrospect, as it could have taken away from the show and would have given us basically no opportunity for certain characters to be fully explored. I think this is definitely something that is interesting in concept, and I don't think there's anything against the idea of Ninjago getting a show, but I just don't think at the result of the actual show itself being affected. Maybe though you guys would want to see that, but that's really all we know about it. Lloyd did not survive Season 10. This is a popular theory from back in the day, where when March of the Oni ends, we see Lloyd actually communicate with the first Spinjitzu master, but Lloyd actually seems to decide to go back to Ninjago itself and continue being the Green Ninja. But this theory alludes to the idea that nothing beyond this point actually happened. Lloyd remained in the grasslands with the first Spinjitzu master, and everything that we've seen beyond this point was some sort of dream or hallucination from Lloyd himself. This is mainly just backed in on the fact that we actually see Lloyd reach out for the first Spinjitzu master's hand, but that is really about it. It is a very dark and very twisted reality we could live in if it was the case, but luckily it doesn't actually seem to be the one that we do have. But it is interesting nonetheless. Klaus's many off-screen antics. Klaus's main season was Season 4, he had a cameo in Season 5, and he kicked off the events of Season 6 in the timeline where he actually found the Teapot of Tyran. And that is fairly a good amount of screen time for a character that isn't actually a main villain and was more of a side villain. But the thing is that off screen there has been many things that have happened to Klaus that people just simply aren't aware of. For one, there is the Dark Island trilogy where he is in the Temple of Light, and he eventually falls into the underworld and does become the ruler of the underworld, but we don't know what happened beyond then. We also then know that he was actually an anaconda at one point, and this is mainly just based off of a singular image we do have of him. But beyond that, we have seen many speculations as to where he has been beyond this point. People believe that he could possibly be the Bone King, but that's never really been confirmed and is probably unlikely. And there was actually a theory back during the release cycle of Season 13 that Klaus may have actually been the Skull Sorcerer, but nothing was ever confirmed, and that was merely just based off of a face print. But in the end, Klaus may return one day, who knows, but he has had many off-screen adventures that people just simply don't know about. And the last one for today is that Fenwick is the main villain of the show. This is a theory that relates to the idea that Fenwick may have been the individual that has pulled every single string that we had ever seen in Ninjago up until a certain point. This stems from the fact that he was the head writer of the Cloud Kingdom, influencing things that had happened and making decisions that may have actually been against the ninja, like the fact that he gave away the Sword of Sanctuary and doomed them to potentially be ended by a different being. But the thing is that it does open up this implication that maybe Fenwick this whole time was working against the ninja, and everything bad that's ever happened to him was a byproduct of Fenwick, making him the true villain of the entire show. But who knows, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. We probably won't ever get those answers. But with that, this was my iceberg for Ninjago as of 2026, and I would love to know, did you learn anything today? Are there things here that you knew already, or is this stuff that I am bringing to you now? I would love to know what you think, because I'm pretty proud of this iceberg, and I would just like to know what you guys think, because I do find these fairly fun to do. But thank you very much for watching this video, and I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and join the legends that you see on screen. Each of your support means the absolute world to me, and I truly cannot thank you enough. But like I said, that's about it for today, and take care. Okay,